So I wanted to come today because I saw this presentation about a month or so ago. Some of the things that they can do for homeowners associations to help us to manage the community better. And I'm gonna let them just go from there and talk about all the different features and things they can do with their drones. It's pretty impressive, but I wanted you all to see it, just in case it's something that you all think might help you with the management of the communities. Now I'll just turn it over to you.
Okay, we're actually let Scott start off.
Thank you.
Don't want to give you guys whiplash, sorry.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much for this opportunity. When we were discussing how to do this presentation, and obviously we did it for the group at the development office and the development side, and when I met with you people before, we started thinking about how does this work from the development to the HOA, and then Melanie clarified it for us that you guys really are still a part of the development process all throughout it. So what I thought I'd do with our presentation is give you a brief background from what we gave to Jack and his group from the development side, so you know what we are doing with drones to expedite some of the development, and we can still work with you. The object of this lesson is, what do we have in mind for you guys? We think we can reduce community management costs. We know we can reduce area property management costs, reduce public safety risks. We can review Arizona and state drone laws with you today. We can increase community marketing awareness. We can reduce land planning and engineering costs. That's what I'm going to talk about briefly. And the part that we get into is for your future changes in your developments. You might have a dog park that needs to be added, or you might have a dog park or a pickle court that needs to be expanded or something. So I'm going to talk to you briefly about some of those things and then I'll help you with that. In the future, when you're doing more development on your property and you've got expansion going on, we can come out and also add to that for your community updates, your social media, for your websites and whatnot. But that's just an idea of how we work with our videography. Some of the other things we do is construction management and the benefits of aerial intelligence in construction projects. This is what I was talking about before. You might have an area where you're expanding. In this particular issue, it's with erosion control on the actual construction side. And everybody is responsible for the development. On the development side, they're all responsible for erosion controls. We use drones for overseeing that and documenting. And one of the things that Mark brought up, your attorney, earlier, is documentation is everything. It's going to increase. And one of the things that we're using drones for is documentation. And I think that there's some very big parts of this puzzle that the drones fit in very well for both new development and for ongoing communities. We work with the drones in construction management. We do progressive film. We do a lot of work. JP, how many projects? You've got 3 or 4 that you're doing for progressive.
Yeah, it's one of our big, the documentation side of things is huge. We have 4 a month that is just going out to big job sites. That's Norterra up in by the I-17 in Happy Valley. But yeah, again, a lot of people are just, it's better to, back yourself up and wait for the problem to happen. So that's probably our biggest service in that.
And in particular, where you have an existing community and an ongoing development, it's always good for your social media updates or for your community updates to say, okay, the project was here last month, and here it is this month, and it's progressing. So helps in that ways. We do a lot of roof inspections on existing, and I'm going to let Kent talk about that a lot more on in his part, but we do a lot of new construction and existing HOA roof inspections. We do building analysis for thermal leaks, all types of things. You can dream it and manage it and imagine it, we're there. Planning and zoning, if you're putting a new park in or if your community needs another pickleball court or something, one of the things we are able to do is go out and actually take the immediate area as is, and then you can bring that back to your planning commission and your people. This was a dog park we did at Sun City West. The architect actually contacted us for this. The Sun City West Recreational Department said, can you take this information and put it into an engineering format? We were able to fly it, communicate it to the engineers, and then the landscape architect was able to add that into a new dog facility, increasing for the community. These are some of the equipment that we use, and I think it's important when you guys are out there looking at the drones flying over that you know if it's not huge and big, it's not us. If it's too small, then it's probably a homeowner using his little drones, but some of our equipment's out in the back there. I think the next part is property mapping, and I think Kent, you can explain how that works.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Let me move this out of the way for you. Look like you're... Is that better? My name is Kent. Like Scott said, I'm the division manager with DroneWorks, and my background is in sales, marketing, and management. And I've been flying drones for a while, about 5 or 6 years now. I've always been into RC aircraft, and I do have a beard. And I get asked often. I'm not auditioning for Duck Dynasty, as you guys know that. But I have 2 little girls, and anytime anything drastically changes my appearance, they freak out. And they don't know me, they get scared and nervous, so I stop shaving, because the last time I shaved, I had to bribe them to get in the car after school with candy. I'm like, no, I'm really your dad, it's okay. So I'm growing it up. So, property documentation. We were talking to Melanie, and along with other homeowners and community associations, the big thing is storm events. And I know that we just went through a few this year. It was pretty bad. When damage occurs, how do you assess the damage? So winds, rain, fire, earthquakes, new construction, anytime, anywhere. What we do with drones, and I don't know how many people thought drones were just used for pictures. That's usually what people think. It's so much more than that. That's actually a small portion of what we do now. We map your entire property. So we're able to map an entire property to get an assessment of what is currently on the property. So what we do is we fly a pattern that goes back and forth over every single inch of the property in the air, and then it overlaps to get a complete picture of what you have. So we're able to look at any type of building, tree, shrubs. You can zoom in very, very well with the pictures and the photographs that we provide from this documentation. So we can photograph all your buildings, including clubhouses, facilities, structures, restaurants, tennis courts, pools, golf courses, parks. And why this is important is because when something does happen, it's a great reference point to go back to say, how was this building before? And then sometimes we have communities talk about residents where they come out and they cut palms or trees, and the resident the next day saying, well, that palm tree fell on my roof or damaged something. So you can go back to this documentation and you can see how it was existing before and after, if that in fact is the case. Whenever there is an issue like a storm damage, now that we've got the pre-documentation, what we call it, or as is, once storm does come through, we're able to, we always offer fast response. So we had a case with a customer of ours, I'm going to show you an example, that called us after a big storm, had tons of trees down on their property, and they wanted to know what the extent was. So they called us up. The next day we were able to go out, and we were able to map the entire property, and this is a photo of it here. So this is with a Google Earth image. Now, a lot of people use Google Earth, but if you've ever noticed, they're outdated. Most of the time, they're either months, could be 6 months, could be a year old. So this is an example of a Google Earth image here, and then also to the right, Google Earth maps are outdated several months. This example here is from February of 2018. So this was a customer's property. Storm happened in August. He wasn't able to go back to Google Earth, so his option was to have his landscaper go out and document all of the damage. And have you guys done that before, where your landscaping company, they say, we'll go out, we'll take care of it. You're losing thousands of dollars by doing that, and I'll tell you why. With our mapping, this isn't updated. What we did was we were able to fly an exact area. So this was their property line. So where you kind of see that square there, that's where we flew, and outside of that is Google Earth. So it's kind of imposed over Google Earth. And all the annotations, this is called an orthomosaic map. We can update it as often as possible, as often as requested. Development transition areas to residential living zones are updated as completed. You're able to zoom in and out, very detailed viewing of all areas, and it's a high resolution, like I said. So with these annotations, these little dots, those are all areas that were impacted by a storm. And originally, he had his landscaper go out, and I'll get to that in a second. We can go to the next one. So what is an orthomosaic map? Just to give you guys a quick lesson. Orthophoto, orthophotograph, or ortho image is an aerial photograph geometrically corrected such that the scale is uniform. The photo has the same lack of distortion as a map. Unlike an uncorrected aerial photograph, an orthophotograph can be used to measure true distances because it is an accurate representation of the Earth's surface, having been adjusted for topographic relief, lens distortion, and camera tilt. Very nerdy terminology. Basically, you can zoom in very, very well with this. You can also have GPS pinpoints, so you can drop a pin somewhere and it'll give you the latitude and longitude of that area. You can measure distances, so if you can use this property map for so many different things, like Scott was talking about construction. If you have a pickleball court you want to go into, we would come out there, we would map it like this, and you could do an area where this case, the gentleman was talking about, they were planning on doing, cutting out this turf here, and they were gonna build a building. So you can take this area just by our map, and it's really easy to do, and draw a line around it, and it'll give you square feet, square inches, square acres, all of that, so that you can also take that to a development company. You'll know what you're working with, how much area you need. You can pass it on to an architecture. So it's a lot of things that it's useful for. You can get it in a quarter of a time that it would a traditional way in getting this type of information, and a lot less expensive. So DroneWorks provides updated, current, as-is, real-time photogrammetry of your property. So again, we're looking at a photograph on August 18, 2018. This is for the insurance event. Does anybody know where this is? Any idea? Baseball people, this is Talking Stick, Salt River Fields, right across from the hotel, Talking Stick. And we also did the Talking Stick Hotel. They are actually shut down now due to one of the storms, with their generators flooding, and all the power's out, and everybody got kicked out of the hotel. And every week they kept pushing back their opening because of so much damage. So I think they've been closed for almost a month now. But we mapped their property as well. So this is what it looks like without the annotations. And then after us marking the trees that went down, he had flooding areas. He had areas where fencing was also broken. So we were able to see all of that with this photo by scanning line by line. So in the insurance event, owner's rep contacted our sister company, SiteWorks, which is our landscape division. They requested us come out and do this analyzation. So we flew the property as is using the high definition cameras. We were able to identify the damaged trees and landscape area. SiteWorks maintenance then went in after we identified the troubled areas, and they were able to identify the species, the price of what it would be to replace the tree, and then obviously what they had there before, what their loss was. So, I mean, it worked seamlessly. So
Remember one thing too, Kent, is that, and you told me that story, that they were undersized on the trees, right?
right. So getting back to that, like I said earlier, the landscaper kind of went into auto mode, and our maintenance division actually approached the manager there and said, well, we have a drone company that can actually come out and map this for you. Before he had talked to his landscaper about doing it or not, his landscaper actually started doing it, and then he provided his report, and he wanted to see what it was going to look like. And the landscaper turned in a report that he shot with his phone. He used a little bit of Google Earth, and some of the areas were completely off. Like, he was saying that there's a tree down here, and it was really over here. The total tree count that he got was 35. The total tree count that we got was around 65. So 30 trees that were damaged that the landscaper didn't account for, $1,000 each. I mean, or 5,000. They all range in price, but you can see there's a lot of money that was being left on the table in this situation. The money that we were able to recover for them, number one, is the loss of tree. So I was talking to another, I think it was Gold Canyon. He says all landscapers will provide us the report of how much it's going to cost to replace it. So yeah, we know how much to file a claim for. And I said, wait a second, you just said the cost to replace it. We all realize that these trees are assets. What about the tree that fell down? Because that's an asset, he's losing that money. He's only quoted what it's going to cost to replace the tree. So there's two things there. We lost a tree that was worth $5,000. We want to replace it with a tree that's $2,000. The insurance company will provide you that in your claim. They'll provide you that reimbursement. So that's
If we can document, if we can
Right.
show the documentation that it was a full-grown tree.
right, and that's going back to the as-is documentation. When we come out, we fly that, and you'll know what you have on your property at that point. So in this particular case, customer was ecstatic with this documentation, and he said he had too many trees. He didn't want to replace all of them, but he's going to get reimbursed for the ones that were damaged, and he's going to have enough money to replace, to put in the trees that he needs to from the claim. And this is supporting documentation for that. And the insurance companies, in most cases, I would say 8 out of 10 cases, they actually will reimburse you for this documentation for the service. So this service bill is passed on to the insurance agent. And this is the gentleman here. We've sustained major storm damage to our 140-acre property, which resulted in the loss of 65 trees. Our landscape contractor could not provide timely documentation to identify the quantity, sizes, species, and locations of all the trees for an insurance claim. DroneWorks came in and quickly mapped the entire property with accurate details and pictures for every tree that was lost. We discovered that the landscape contractor missed over half of the total trees, which would have negatively impacted the insurance claim and cost thousands of dollars in out-of-pocket expenses. DroneWorks simplified otherwise labor-intensive process, which saved a significant amount of time and money. From the call until the report was handed back to him, it was about 4 days, and that was it. We came out, we mapped it, I sat in front of the computer, scanned the whole property, annotated all the damage. SiteWorks came in, identified the tree species, because we're not arborists at DroneWorks, so if you guys have somebody on staff that can do that, they'll be able to go and see that. But that's just an idea of the full service spectrum that we offer. And this is in the customer's words. So here's a quick video of exactly the kind of interaction that you'll have with the program once we submit the file to you for property documentation. And it's done over the cloud, so it's not going to bog your computer down. From a height of about 200 feet in the air. And we're able to color code them. So in this case, I went in and color coded certain trees, orange, and some other damaged areas red, like flooding or fence damage. And then the next thing that SiteWorks did, and that's an additional service, but SiteWorks will come in and they'll color code it a different color based on tree species. And then the client, the final thing the client will do, that you can do, is go in and color code the ones you want to replace. So we know which ones are going to be replaced. So you'll have that master map to be able to use that to kind of get the property up and running again. And now once they do all of the repairs for these trees and put everything kind of back together, I know he's not going to put as many trees as he initially had, but we'll go out and we'll fly it again. So we'll have an as-is kind of baseline for them in the event that the storm comes in and blows trees over again. But a lot of information for this company. So community management, I mean, there's a lot that we can do besides property mapping. I mean, this is another example of just kind of the details that we can provide. Now, state laws, that's one thing that we hear often, is it's illegal, and there's so much buzz out there, especially when drones became very popular, and as they're becoming more and more popular, what is the law? And I know as a pilot, and as we're sitting here today, we've had to go through rigorous guidelines, training. I remember when I first got my certificate, probably 6 months later, the FAA changed their mind, and they're all scrambling to, what do we have to do now to crunch down on this? They're gonna hit an airplane, this and that. I don't think there's been any incidences of that, but the actual state law is, according to the Arizona Department of Transportation and the Arizona State Legislature, Arizona has one statewide law concerning the use of drones in the state established in 2016. It's SB 1449, 2016, includes the following regulations concerning drones. The UAS, unmanned aircraft system, cannot interfere with police, firefighters, or manned aircraft, which we never do. We assist in the event that they do need us. Flying a drone in dangerous proximity to a person or property is identified as disorderly conduct. We don't do that unless you have a disorderly neighbor that you guys want us to go after and harass them. Stay away. UAS cannot fly within 500 feet horizontally or 200 feet vertically of any critical facility, such as, and not limited to oil and gas facilities, water treatment facilities, power plants, courthouses, military installations, hospitals. So real quick note about that. When we fly our drones, we have an FAA airspace map. And so it regulates where we can and cannot fly already. So it already has restricted areas in there, like sports fields, like it says military zones, can't fly around the White House, can't fly around Trump Tower now, those kind of things. So we're already, it's already on a map. And so a lot of times our drones won't even take off. I mean, it's real precise, it's real high tech. So cities and towns in the state of Arizona that contain more than one park must allow drones in at least one of them. That's kind of a new thing because I know when the laws were first coming out, I used to go to the park all the time and I'd get kicked out like right away. You can't fly here, you can't fly here. So I think we have good attorneys as far as drone pilots are concerned, and they are constantly trying to fight legislation with strict laws that don't make sense. Like we want to fly here on the park. And
one of the things I was talking to Mark about earlier, your attorney guy, in the future, your communities are going to have to deal with it. I'm a 64-year-old RC pilot that's been doing this forever, and I need a space to go to fly drones or to fly remote control. Your communities are gonna, in the future, have to kind of come up with a space in an area where these guys and people like me can go and recreate, and that's the idea. But there's two concepts. The word is loitering and lingering. If you're flying anything over a neighbor's home or a property and it's loitering or stopped, it's observing. That's illegal. And we are not able to do that. It's illegal, but you can fly through it. SRP does it every day. They're flying over our properties, they're taking imagery of everything, and so are our satellites. So it's not illegal. We own the airspace. FAA owns the airspace. Anything above ground, it's free and clear to fly. But if that pilot is flying over a space and it's stopped and hovering, you got a problem, you got an issue. So one of the things that you got to find out from if you have an issue and somebody says, hey, I have a drone over my house, were they loitering or lingering? How long were they there? If they say, well, they just flew by, back to what your attorney said, it's not my problem. Not my problem. But if you have and Jack, this might be something that we were talking about earlier too, you might want to start thinking about all your bylaws, how you're going to improve that clarification so that continues.
Well, that last thing says that you can't do anything. Cities and towns in Arizona.
Well, you can have laws in there, and that's what Mark and I are talking about. They're going to look into that more specifically. So you don't want to gather dust on your problem. You want to just say, okay, I either can't do it, or I don't want to deal with it. But at some point, there's going to be somebody calling up and saying, hey, what do we got?
And they're trying to make everything consistent. So
Dangerous proximity. What's that?
Well, first of all, that's an older law that's actually been changed now. If we notify you, if we're working with you on a public event and we notify you that there will be a drone in the air, that's no longer a dangerous proximity. Dangerous proximity is if I put a drone in the air right here. It's not controlled by our GIS system or our spatial recognition. It's freehand and somebody out here is flying it. That would be a dangerous situation. And I've been in environments before where we've said, okay, there's too many people around and there's too much wind or draft or whatever. We flew that St. Vincent.
Yeah, the charity event.
Yeah, and it was.
And just as a like understatement, the laws are very gray right now. It's just how it is. So some of these may seem arbitrary at most, but it's just where we're at right now. So we're trying to be that preemptive strike of, maybe take advantage of the loose laws while we can, but also preparing ourselves for when those do really firm up. How do we handle it? So, but yeah, we've done plenty of scenarios where we've deemed it safe or non-safe to be in that situation. So it's really a touch and feel thing.
Point being, though, is we went to a grand opening. They were aware. They invited us to fly that. There was a lot of public dignitaries there. And the importance of that was that we were above their heads. We let them know that we were there. We were obviously flying, JP was the pilot at the time, flying around the area, not directly hovering over the top of them to endanger them. And the other idea is that the laws are changing. Everybody tells me, oh, great, you're going to get into Amazon dropping packages and pizza off. It'll never happen. It will never happen.
It won't happen. No.
They will not happen in our system. FAA does not want unmanned aircraft flying bombs or any destructive goods over the top of people's heads. So no matter what you hear, it isn't going to happen. The FAA doesn't have enough control for that to.
Yeah. I know if my ex-wife could, she'd pick up the kids with the drone.
So do you have to put identification on this? A month ago, surveying plane flying over the property crashed right in the middle of my parking lot.
Really?
Nobody there gather it up. I gather it up. I take it in my office, figuring a resident's going to come and get his drone, come see Tim before you get to the plane, not a drone.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody showed up, nothing inside of it for me to ID who owned it. Sat there for 2 weeks. Somebody come by, I recognize who it belonged to, a surveying company. I contact them. Yeah, they want their plane. It's $40,000, $50,000.
Should have called us. I'd handle it for you.
Yeah, we'll drop it off.
We've got an eBay.
Bottom line is, I couldn't identify anyone. You show $2 million in insurance, it crashed in a car. I need to be able to know it didn't hit a car. It just missed a car. I need to know who I'm chasing. There was nothing in it to identify it.
That's illegal.
The fact that it flew over the top of us.
It was like foam and carbon fiber with a camera inset in it.
Yeah.
The camera was
That is an
trashed.
expensive one, actually, but it's illegal if it doesn't have any markings on it.
We're supposed to have a tag on it. Ours have serial numbers on them that are registered with the
Yeah, I
FAA.
couldn't find any of that on it. Now,
Well, it's
they
possible
are,
that it-
and I told them from this point on, if you're flying this property to do anything for anyone for surveying purposes, I want to know so I can notify residents.
Absolutely.
We notified them Saturday, this thing will be flying, you will see it, and it'll be back and forth grading the property. So it's good for us to know, to tell the residents, because they do get, what's going on, man? Why is this thing constantly coming back? So it is good to let them know.
By law, do you have to do that? I mean, you know.
Don't have to, but I think.
So somebody could be doing it, we
Absolutely.
have no idea what's
As a
going on.
company, we fly Desert Mountain or wherever, where most every other house in Desert Mountain is somebody very rich and an attorney. And they were very, very restricted. They will not let you fly over their property lines. Well, I clearly showed them the law, but it goes back to loitering and lingering. But my point is exactly your point. I notified them. I told them, I said, if you got a gripe right now, let's get it out in the open before we're up in the air. And if there's a situation, we'll clarify that for them. And like what Kent said before, and JP will attest to it, we have very strict regulations of where we can fly, and we have almost virtual barriers that stop us from flying to some of those other areas. So, anyways,
So you set a perimeter for it to fly,
Yep.
you're programming it ahead of time?
all of
Yeah.
ours are on time,
And
autonomous flights.
we're supposed to be with, the FAA law is within sight, so if they were flying out of sight, that also was against the law.
Well, that's the thing, I sat there in the parking lot for an hour figuring a resident's gonna come looking for his plane, now when I went this way, nobody showed up.
Nobody showed up.
All right. They'll come looking at the front desk, nobody
Yeah.
showed up. They went everywhere but the clubhouse, so they went everywhere but the actual clubhouse.
When we're hired, we always communicate when we're gonna be flying, the date, the time, so there's only so much we can do. We will communicate that with whoever hired us, and so at that point, you can obviously inform your guests and those kind of things, and if we need to make signs and put them
That's just
somewhere.
good to let them know, so I'm, because when
Yeah,
we
always.
start flying the drone over the pool, people get
Oh, yeah.
stressed
Yeah,
out.
we hear that one a lot.
And let your security department know too. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the
we
other,
do.
we communicate, we coordinate, we actually go out and meet with the security department head so that we can show them what we're doing and make them aware of everything. And we hand out our business card. We'd rather have them call us than you, so. Sure.
And I can tell you a lot of stories. I mean, I flew for Christmas time. Anybody seen the temple in Mesa? You know how nice it's decorated, all the lot. There's thousands and thousands of it. So I wanted to get out there and I wanted to shoot it. So I was across the street on public property in the parking lot of the park. And I was flying it over, getting good video of it. And within about 5 minutes, one of the gentlemen came out and said, "What are you doing? You can't fly." And I said, "Well, actually, it's not restricted. We can fly." And he had a police officer come out and he said, "You got to get his information." The police officer said, "Give me your information." And I said, "No, I don't want to." And the police officer turned to him and said, "Well, he doesn't want to give me his information." He said, "He has to. It's over our temple. He has to give me information." I said, "Well, actually, I don't." And I had to inform him of the law, and I said, "I'm just getting video, and if you guys want to restrict your airspace, you'll have to go through FAA and all that." So it's not illegal. I mean, so we're able to fly anywhere unless, again, and you're able to look up the FAA maps online. So if you're ever curious to know, it's all around major airports, Air Force bases, and those kind of things. So we do follow those, very strict. So kind of transitioning from drones, and we'll at the end we'll go through a Q&A for you guys if you have any questions for us. Going back to our company, SiteWorks, we have a great relationship with community managers out there through the commercial landscape division. And one of my first weeks there, I was meeting with our maintenance division manager, Joe, and I said, what is it that your community managers could really benefit from as far as data collection, as far as helping their job, their daily responsibilities out with? And the first thing he said was community violation assessment. Because I know it's very time consuming, you have to get in your vehicle or you pay someone to get in their vehicle and drive the entire community. So we started working on this project about 6 months ago to figure out what we could offer managers in way of a service to be able to eliminate you having to drive the properties just to write up someone for weeds or a truck or a car parked in their yard when they don't have a pavement or anything. So that brings us to our documentation service for communities. What we do is we drive the community similar to Google Street View. So if you've used Google Street View, you're able to see the entire both sides of the street, left and right and behind you. So it's a 360-degree view. We've been able to kind of adapt this service, and now we can provide it to communities. So this is an example of us driving, and now it looks really clear, but we do have some Wi-Fi restrictions here. So what would happen is, on your desktop, you'd be able to view this. Do you have the video? Or you're going to pull it up the sample one? You can go through this one. We'll show another. Do you have the other one too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You can move this camera around too.
Oh yeah, actually, if you got the mouse there, he's in drive. So there you go, he's moving it right now. So as you're driving, you're able to play, pause, rewind, fast forward. You can take screenshots of the community. You can actually print out the screenshot, and then I know speaking with Melanie and some other managers, the way you guys document it is you actually type in the date. So you'll get this. It'll have a date on it. Obviously, we'll let you know when we drove the community, so you can use that date as the date of notice, or when you notice the violation. You can clearly see the front yard. You can zoom in, zoom out. You can see weeds. And I know a lot of times communities will have kind of an unspoken rule that if it's not at least knee high for a weed, or there's not multiple weeds, they won't send out a violation. But this is just getting you out of the car, getting you from going out into the car and being able to do it at your desktop. You know the next one? And this is just on YouTube, so it's we're just using the internet here, but you did it on your desktop. I think you have to hit escape. There we go. So we know what you guys are looking for. I mean, we've been told you're looking for obvious concerns, structural, was it approved, was it not approved. This is kind of jumping back to an aerial view, so you'll get this with the property mapping. We've had communities, and it's really crucial. I would recommend doing a quarterly, at the least, a quarterly inventory of your property. So we could go at a very high altitude, we could do a mapping, we could do a couple photos where you guys can then scan to see properties, kind of sit down, spend an hour or two at looking at the photos. Was this building here before? We've got one at this quarter, now second quarter something popped up. You could find the address for that house, that wasn't approved, we noticed it. Again, we're not trying to spy on anybody, we're just trying to give you the tools you need for documentation purposes. And also to confirm violations. If you've heard from a neighbor, they've got a structure back there, you know, we can come out there and take a photo with the drone, that's back to the drone. Other things we can do with the drone is we have the ability to attach a thermal camera to the drone. So this is an example of a roof that sustained a lot of collecting water here. After that water goes away, how do you know there's an issue? We can come out and, with the thermal camera, we can see where the stressed areas were just by scanning it. It'll show us where water tends to collect, where there's damage. We can see improper insulation. Once buildings are done, they'll have us come out as soon as they close up everything. We can see if there's any loss of heat, where there's some anomalies. So that's an example of roof. And there was a big Safeway fire. Did everybody hear about that?
Yeah.
Phoenix, that was due to roof damage. The gutters, I believe, were clogged, and when it rained, the water collected, collapsed, and the AC and everything went up in flames. And so that's, if they had done preventive documentation, we could have notified them. They have a lot of drains that are clogged and there's issues there. We have a lot of condos out there that are 4 or 5 stories. They don't want to hire a roofer to come out every time, climb every single roof. We can go out and do it in less than an hour and then give them the documentation. And if they see something with that, then they can call a roofer. It's a lot more efficient that way. This example, we're flying a road clear in the day, and we see an anomaly in the road. So it could be subsurface leak, water.
We actually had a project at in Apache Junction, an RV facility, mobile home park, very well, nicely done. But they had a $130,000 difference in their water bill 1 year, and they couldn't find it. So we flew the entire property for them with thermal on their roads, and we found 13 leaks. And we used that by using the asphalt was a certain temperature. I prefer to fly that during the hottest part of the day because the water below is going to provide you with your other indicator. And that's kind of what these photos are representing. It might not look like it in the photo, but once you fly with thermal, you can detect where the water pretty much is leaking out. And obviously for our cheap little $5,800 flight, they've saved themselves $100,000+. So it's worth looking at.
Well, we should work off our commissions.
We should.
20% of what you said. Want to take this one over, Scott?
Yeah, I think some of the things that we all are talking about is documentation. I was invited to speak at the Arizona Water Summit last month, and one of the things that one of the congressmen that was speaking and the director of the Central Arizona Project and the SRP was talking about is, even though water is always a concern and droughts are always a concern, it's even going to get worse. Are all your properties on your own water systems? Do you have all Robson water for all your properties? No. Okay. So here's the deal. even if you have a Robson water deal where it's cheap, and I've owned a golf course before, and I've paid water bills before, and I can tell you that $1 million a month in water usage, it's not very good when you've got 36 holes of golf in the middle of Nevada. But you guys know that. It's very, very difficult to pay that bill. It's going to get harder and harder, and I don't care if you have your own water system or you're getting it from subsurface or from whatever. The documentation of how your water is used on your properties is going to become more and more important to you, because the water people are going to start looking at, okay, well, we use it on our golf course, we use it on open parks, but are you using it properly? And that's back to your golf course superintendents or your landscape superintendents. Are the irrigation systems up to speed? Are they using the newest equipment? Because more and more, once the water becomes more scarce, they're going to ask you, well, how did you know to use 1 million gallons yesterday on that golf course or in your park system? Well, because we had plant stress. My point is, we're using drones nowadays to actually discover more and more of what the problems are with your open area turf and turf management. So we fly golf courses all the time. We do water audits on the golf courses. We work with the golf course superintendent to understand your fertigation, your fertilization programs. We understand your water qualities. We understand your soils qualities. We work with the golf course superintendent and the agronomist to determine if that is an effective water area, if your grass is flourishing, if it's overwatered, whatever. It's going to be a big deal. It already is, but it's going to be even bigger. So as managers and responsible water users, we are here to help you guide your team through how you use your water and how you document it. It's just going to get more and more. Also, what we're doing for golf courses nowadays, and we just got a couple of really nice contracts, is we're going in and mapping all the golf courses so they actually know the up-to-date, as-is square footages of all their greens, tees, fairways, out-of-play areas, bunkers. We can do calculations. All your bunkers have a volume of sand, so we know how to do all that to where we can get that volume, so you know if your golf course superintendent orders 50,000 tons of sand to replace on his bunkers this next year, is that exactly the right amount? Because if it's 30,000, we have a 20,000 ton difference. It's a pretty expensive change. But point being is we work with golf courses, always a tremendous opportunity for them to see what reality is. 10 years later after your golf course is built. Most of your golf courses are how old?
25 years.
Yep. Newest ones are just coming out. How many holes you got? Okay. You got the big spread is my point. So you got older systems, newer systems. It's time to start looking at how to document each of those courses. And we can do that very economically. And the superintendents and the management team likes it because then they have, as they said, the updates, the as-builds. We also do vegetative analysis. This is one of the things that Kent was talking about earlier. We can come in and do a complete vegetative and tree inventory. We can do GIS specifications where we mark the tree with a tag. We know where it's located both in georeference space. We can tell you what the caliper is at the breast height. We can tell you the canopy. That helps you in the valuation not only for your insurance reasons, but also to see if your trees and plants are healthy. That's one of the other benefits that we're working on. I think this is back to you.
All right, and we're jumping back around. Sorry about that, but this is back to the HOA compliance video. This is another better example of how the system would be used from beginning to end. So I'll just let it play. I think we have volume.
And actually, it ties in because we can do vegetative analysis at the same time for all the properties too, for the same thing.
Good point.
I'm with DroneWorks. I'm dropping off copper leaf.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's my favorite part. This goes right into your USB port.
My name is Kent, and I'm with DroneWorks. We have been working closely screenshot the image, upload it to your documentation software, then print and mail it as you normally would. Our video will allow you to pan 360 degrees, tilt, zoom, play, pause, forward, and rewind. You may also save the file for future reference. We can drive your community as often as you need us to.
So we'll provide a dedicated external hard drive for the service in the event that you guys wish to set it up to save each drive. They are large files. That's why we want to give you guys a hard drive, an external hard drive that will just be for DroneWorks video documentation. You can delete them whenever you want, but at least you'll have it just in the case, in the event that you want to go back. Full installation, training with the program. There's nothing to purchase, just our service. And then ongoing support, so if there's any issues with the software or whatever that we have that we've shown you how to train, you can always call us. We'll walk you through it. May require a remote login for us to show you kind of what you're doing. Once you get the hang of it, it'll be pretty simple. And then this is an inspector notes. So while we're driving the community, if we notice anything out of place, one thing Melanie told us is I'm not just looking for weeds. She's actually looking at common areas, walls, roads, parks, benches, those kind of things. We're not going to catch everything. The video will for you guys to review, but if we notice something like, for example, mailboxes on Palo Verde and Mesa Drive have flyers posted on them. And this is, again, is going to come up in conversation while we're setting you guys up. You say, I wish, I want you guys to look for X, Y, Z while you're doing it. So we'll do that and we'll notate it. We might not catch everything, but if we do see something obvious, we'll submit that with the disk or with the drive. So again, to reiterate, public safety, emergency management, property assessment, community public works, golf course, common areas, parks and recreation. These are all areas that DroneWorks has been assisting managers with. Yeah, and we coordinate sometimes with the fire department and fire rescue and police, search and rescue, thermal imagery for hot spots and fires and those kind of things. We're always available to help out our communities. And I think the next slide is media. All right.
Yeah, we're just gonna rock on through this.
You're gonna take it over? Okay.
A while. But long story short, you guys know what media is. That's my department, as we said earlier. I'm JP, by the way. I also happen to be here. So yeah, pretty cut and dry. You guys, I'm sure. I don't know how your guys' marketing or media works. Do you guys each individually? I don't know who dictates what you guys are using for providers.
Is it Alina?
Is it Alina?
Yeah. Is it Alina for everybody? Okay.
Yeah. So she's seen all this, and we're constantly in communication with her. So just real quick, photography, aerial videography, and 3D modeling are kind of where I deal with it. And again, I don't really know your day-to-day, so if some of this doesn't apply to you, I apologize, but I'm going to fly through this so we don't watch it real quick. But this was down at Wigwam at a charity event for Luke Air Force Base, and we went out there and actually this is the services.
Oh, this is the full scope.
Yeah. So this is what I do. This is a Matterport that's walking with a big clunky machine. We go in and we 3D model entire buildings for something like this, a clubhouse or a restaurant, and we have really nice community features. We'll go in there and, as we said, 3D model it. This is the future of marketing. I mean, it is what it is right now. This is really blowing up in the real estate market. It's only going to be a matter of time before it hits, community centers, gyms, restaurants, things of that nature. So we, like we said, sort of my thing, we want to be that preemptive strike. I promise you in 5 years, there's going to be someone walking through your door trying to sell that to you for twice as much. So just keep that in mind, because it's certainly going there. This is another one of our services that we provide. I'll go out there and fly. This is just an example of a nice real estate home, but again, for communities like this, big standing communities with meetings, golf courses, things of that nature, you got to go aerial. You have to. There's no other way to show off what you guys have built here, essentially.
Good for model homes.
Yeah, and model homes, again, it's just that next level of advertising.
Is this your personal residence, JP?
It's not my personal residence, no. They didn't even know it's...
That's his garage.
Wow.
Not at all. I'm in one of those bushes back there. And then another one. This is one of our. I think Scott was the one who flew this, but point being is that we want to show off that golf courses look great. Golf courses 200 feet in the air look even better, and they're going to remember that. I promise you. So people who are prospective home buyers, this is what they want to see, not just the virtual slideshow. Scott, this is Desert Mountain. Sorry.
Scott was in the bunker there.
Scott's always in the bunker.
Oh, this is Saddle Brook. This is just a sample shot there of their community.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna do some work for Saddlebrook here in the next after they do all their overseeding and everything. We're gonna be out there.
Welcome to Saddlebrook Ranch, surrounded by...
You guys get the idea.
We have to go to lunch, so we're...
Yeah, and seriously. So it's not that I don't think there's a value, but if you want to talk to me more in detail, just find me because I think we're all hungry. And then aside from all the video work and drone work, we do HDR photography. I don't need to sell you on photography. If you guys need it, come talk to me. I don't know what your pricing structure is, but we only do HDR. For the guys who don't know, that's me pretty much merging 5 photos together to make sure that everything, whether it's 200 feet away or the first subject right in front of you, everything will be in detail. So it's just, like I said, that next level of photography even that has become our standard. So we will provide that to you. I think that's just about it. Cool, that's all we got.
So we'll take this time to open up for questions, if anybody has any.
Yeah, oh, I see the hand raising, I love it.
One thing we didn't touch on because we didn't know if it was permanent or not, but roof inspections, we did talk about it. We are working with Robson possibly to go out and during their construction, they want to see dry-in and finish stages to kind of look at their roofs. We're talking right now about possibly teaming up and doing that for you guys. So I know that the HOA side of it, you guys have villas that I've heard. Right. So that's the part that I wanted to cover with you. If you have villas that need to have an annual roof inspection, we're able to do that and provide it to you by way of video, by way of photo. And again, it's a photo that's real crisp. You can zoom in between the tiles.
Do you have anything that you can show us how you can zoom in on some of the roofs to see exactly like the tiles that are out of place?
Oh, yeah.
Stuff on them. Do you have anything you can show us today? Or
I can show them on.
yeah, just that's why the villas I think is a good application because it just goes in a roof inspection to see if there's bird roof in them, or crevices, or there's tiles.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Go ahead.